Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to the madness. It is officially March Madness season in about 2 hours. And I got to say, Nick Castrucci from the chat, by the way, everybody in the chat, thanks for being in here. Thanks for hitting the like button. He kind of stole the opening right out of my mouth. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read his. He says, in the words of Bruce Buffer, it is time. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Let the madness begin. Good morning, Early Edge family. Family indeed. Really, really appreciate that. All right, we got to get things started. We have such a loaded show, but before we do that, let's take a look at the recap screen from yesterday. Now, a lot of our picks were actually kind of over the weekend too, so this isn't the full allotment of our picks yesterday. And of course, my three ball is going on right now as of the last time I checked. I had a 2-shot lead in the 3-ball that I put out yesterday, so we'll have to monitor that one. But 1 and 3 isn't great. Hopefully it's 2 and 3 because of my golf bet, and then we have those weekend soccer bets. So we have some catching up to do, and we absolutely can do it. I got to get to the stars of the show, though. Let's go ahead and bring them in. We have a full show, and by the way, it's not going to just be March Madness. We're going to have March Madness. We're going to have some dogs to pick from. We're going to have soccer. We see Buckets. Were you just doing the Dougie? But I think Buckets was just doing the Dougie. We got Propstarz with NBA props. I've got another golf bet that goes off this afternoon. Buckets, I'm going to start with you. I always got to get the P.O. box check. And was that the Dougie? What were you doing there?
I'm just happy to be here, man. I saw everyone this morning on Twitter was so excited. They're saying it's finally starting here. It's time. Let's do this. I'm also excited for the Euro qualifiers taking place this afternoon. So I'm glad everyone shares that love with me. The biggest update to the shelf is I actually own a bucket now. That was something that came in yesterday. Buckets got sent a bucket. So big things happening over here.
That is very, very clever. Maestro and Tom, you guys got to be excited. Tom, let me start with you. I know you live, eat, breathe college basketball. And if you don't follow Tom Casale on Twitter, I very much encourage you to do it because you'll get some picks, but you'll get some comedy as well. Tom, you got to be super excited today.
I am. Buckets reminds me of mid-November when football is hard to bet, and I'm betting college basketball, and everyone's worried about the big football games, and I'm betting Colgate, Vermont. That's Buckets today. He's betting Paraguay soccer, but I'm excited. It's the best time of year for me. It's exciting. I'm looking forward to some good games and finally getting them. I don't think I can make that Drake joke again. It's been like 75 times where, I did the Seinfeld Drake joke. I think people have got it. Let's move on and get the games tipped off.
And that game is tonight. I think it's the final game on the slate tonight. So I know we'll all be tuned in to the Drake. We love the Drake. Maestro, I want to get to you in a second because you and Tom are going to give out some kind of dogs of the day, maybe some outright money line dogs that people should be interested in whether to bet or maybe in your bracket. But Proppy, can I just go to you real quick? Because again, I feel a little bad because we're talking soccer, we're talking March Madness, and you've got, correct me if I'm wrong, you've got some NBA props today, right?
Always see the grind never stops over at Propstarz HQ.
So here's the thing. I love March Madness just as much as the next man or woman, but I will say this. Do not sleep on Propstarz on a Thursday opening day of March Madness because the green pays just as well during March Madness season than it does during NBA playoff season. So let's make sure we dial in to everybody. Proppy, you never take a back seat. All right, Maestro, I want to start with you because I want to get to our official picks, our best bets. We're going to have Buckets give out his soccer pick in just a minute. But listen, we have some picks on SportsLine. I shouldn't say some. We have a ton of picks on SportsLine. But I wanted to talk about maybe, I don't want to call them reaches, but maybe some dogs that aren't necessarily official picks in terms of an outright win, but maybe some teams that could potentially just have the outright upset. So I want to start with you. Is there a team on the board today where you look at it and you say, all right, this team may cover, but they also may outright win here?
Yeah, I could see Kansas going down today. They don't have their leading scorer. We know that. But the rest of the team, they have some good inside players. They can't shoot the ball. 6 of 41 from beyond the arc in their last 2 games. In fact, for this season, this is the worst three-point shooting team Kansas has had in about 25 years at 32%. Nick Timberlake, who was supposed to be one of their marksmen, he's at 28% for the season. They're basically going to rely on guys to shoot the ball who just have not proven it this season. Stanford has got a really good big man, Achor from Australia. They've won 26 games. I don't think this should shock anyone if this is a very tight game down to the wire with Stanford. And I mean, Kansas comes in having lost 4 of their last 5. They're just not a good vibe right now. around Bill Self's program.
You know what is a good vibe, Larry, is Mark Hood. He's always a good vibe in here. And he says, I have an idea for a new reality show, Buckets and Sia's Pop Culture Road Trip. What's funny about that, Buckets, is we had that concept of you and I doing a pop culture thing on Sia Nejad Sports, which maybe we need to revive because, Mark, it just always sounds like a good idea. All right, Tom, I want to go. Buckets, go ahead, respond. Sorry.
I was going to say, it's kind of a bummer because whenever I try to reference something, you look at me like, a deer in the headlights. I also got a Dundee Award sent to my house last night, but you don't know what that is. And that hurts me, but that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so I feel bad about that. I still feel a little bit of shame for the Office reference that I did not get. All right, Tom, I got to go to you here because I'll say this about Maestro's pick. I like Samford too. I don't know that they're going to outright win, but it does seem like Kansas is wilting maybe more than any other top quality team in the NCAA. I think Kevin McCullough is the glue to that team. They have absolutely no depth on that team whatsoever. And we know Samford has a ton of depth, and they have a pretty wide rotation of players that are going to come in. So I like that play quite a bit, but you have a different play in terms of a potential outright dog that can win.
Yeah, Zach turned me on to this, so I got to give him credit. But I'm looking at Duquesne against BYU. I like BYU to win a couple of games if they can get by this one. It's a sleepy early game. BYU shoots a ton of threes. Duquesne's going to try to slow this pace down. They're athletic on the perimeter. This, I think, is a good opportunity for a live bet. Watch that first few minutes and see how comfortable BYU is shooting threes. Because, if they're going to go 12 for 23 from three, you can, good night, it's over. But if Duquesne can get out on those guys and make them work, because BYU, they don't get to the foul line. Teams like that, they scare me a little bit. Teams that don't get to the foul line, teams that don't shoot a lot of twos, you're really reliant on one thing working. Now, BYU is good at that one thing, but Duquesne has an underrated defense. They can play this game in the 50s. If you look at some of the Big 12 games that BYU struggled against, they were games played in the 60s and 50s. So I think this is going to be an interesting matchup early on Thursday, and I think it presents some good live bet opportunities, but I think Duquesne could stick around with BYU.
Yeah, that is a really interesting one because BYU is one of those teams that I think can go really far, or I think they can get bounced in the first round. It's just one of those super volatile teams, which probably makes them ripe for a potential upset to a team like Duquesne, who's obviously coming in very, very hot. All right, we got to come in even hotter because we got to get to it. Listen, those were good dogs to talk about, but we got to get to our outright picks, and we're going to start with soccer. But before we do that, I want to hear a message from our partners.
The blackout mystery remains.
Welcome to March Madness. Oh, you just never know in the tournament who is going to shine.
Stream March Madness live on any device, anywhere, and be ready for anything.
Welcome back to the Early Edge, presented by BetMGM. We had a comment from, who was it? It was Mark Hood who said, or it was somebody who said, I think that Mississippi State might bully Michigan State. I wish I could find. Oh, it was Lee Brown. If the rest let them play, Mississippi State will bully Sparty. I kind of agree with that take. We may touch on that a little bit later. But Buckets, we got to get to your soccer pick, and we got to move forward with NBA, NCAA, and I still got a golf pick to give out. You have the floor, my friend.
Well, just like Sia said, the pay window does not care what sports you're betting on. Let's just cash some tickets together here, guys. I'm looking at the Euro qualifier between Bosnia and Herzegovina taking on Ukraine. And we talk all the time on the show about how there's some teams and there's some nations that play really, really good when they're playing at home, and they have this massive home field advantage. Bosnia is the opposite of that. Bosnia is a team that, for whatever reason, when they're playing in front of their home fans, they are terrible. They have lost 7 of their last 9 matches and 3 of their last 4 when playing at home. And they're playing a Ukraine side that boasts kind of a weird amount of Premier League talent. Mykhailo Mudryk from Chelsea, Zinchenko from Arsenal, and Dobrik from Girona. This is a team that has a lot of good European quality. And I think Ukraine are just going to have too much for Bosnia here. I'm taking Ukraine over 1.5 team total at plus 140. To me, this isn't a plus odds bet. This is something that should be closer to that even money, minus 110. So I'm going to take that all day for a full unit. And a little extra sprinkle for those of you that are watching right now. Ukraine to score 2 in the first half here is plus 650. I think Ukraine win this one. I don't want to say easily, but Bosnia are simply outclassed here in their current form.
Bosnia simply outclassed. Okay, I like that pick. And by the way, Troy Pfeiffer, I think I'm saying that correctly in the chat. He says, Tom, this is for you. He says, where can I bet the under on Tom's total steps today. So I want to go ahead and set that line. And Tom, I'd like your response before we get to the rest of the picks here. I'm thinking, I mean, there's some practicalities that you need to consider here. I'm thinking the total here should be like 34.5, over or under. Is that a good line, over or under?
Yeah, that's. I mean, the under's really been steamed on that over the last 24 hours. I'm not going to move much. Let me put it this way. Yesterday, when my son went to bed, he said, "Good night, Dad. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'll only bother you if it's an emergency." So there you go.
Absolutely love that. Maestro, what do you think? The under on 34.5, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I'm just so glad, it took some negotiation to get Tom into the fold. He was having a historic season. We brought him aboard finally after a long negotiation. I'm just glad we got him, a month or two ago in time for March Madness.
You know what's really cool about Tom as well, and I was lucky enough to know him before he came on to SportsLine, at least to some degree. His picks are so well thought out. They're so well researched. He's a guy that's watching all the games and just diagnosing everything he can diagnose. But the really cool thing is he's a good person too. Tom, I know I'm not trying to pour praise on you for you to have to say, oh, thank you or anything. I'm not even going to let you talk actually. But I love that about the early edge. We got a lot of good people, but we got a lot of good people giving good picks, and you just can't get better than that. Buckets, you're one of those guys. What do you got?
No. Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't ready for that. I appreciate you. No, real quick, because I know we're about to take a sharp turn into March Madness. I saw one question regarding Poland in the chat. Poland plays Estonia today, and he asked, no LA Face said Poland over 1.5 team total in the first half at plus 240. I do think Poland win this game, probably pretty aggressively, but Poland tends to be a bit of a second half team, so I'd rather take their match team total over 2.5 rather than a first half play against Estonia.
All right, match team total over 2.5. By the way, if you want to take these soccer picks or any of the picks we're about to give out, BetMGM for the first round of March matchups, eligible players will receive 64% boost. This is a new one, folks. Check it out. Eligible players will receive a 64% odds boost token at a minimum of minus 300 odds, and then a 64% live odds boost token at a minimum odds of minus 300, and a 64% parlay boost token of minimum 4+ legs plus 400 odds. Log into BetMGM app. Log into the BetMGM app for offer details. All right. That is a great promo. I got to talk to them. Maybe we can get it up to 68% because I got to say, it's the field of 68 now. Times have changed. Maybe for next year. All right, let's go to my picks. We're going to start with golf. So obviously I have the play going on right now. Again, 2-shot lead. We'll see how that goes. It's very early in the round. Obviously, we've got Christian Bezuidenhout. We're going to go with Nick Taylor, a much easier name to say. We're going to go with Nick Taylor over Minwoo Lee at minus 105. Nick Taylor, a short dog here. And I think it's because, listen, Minwoo Lee is a very talented golfer, and he's playing very, very good golf. But the thing is, I don't know that this is the course for him. Minwoo Lee really does it sometimes with the short game, but it's the off the tee game that is really, that's his calling card. He is just he's a great player off the tee. This is more of a positional course, though. The off the tee game isn't going to be a huge advantage for a guy like Minwoo Lee. That doesn't mean bombers can't succeed. Guys like Cam Young, Sam Burns, they're already on the course, and they're already making a lot of birdies. The difference between those two guys and Minwoo Lee is those two guys that I just mentioned, Sam Burns and Cam Young, are excellent on approach, or at least typically excellent on approach, and we can't say the same for Minwoo Lee. In fact, the one thing that Minwoo Lee lacks more often than not is a lead approach game. He can pop on approach here and there, and it certainly could happen in round one of this tournament, but more often than not, he's very erratic on approach. That sort of erratic activity, those erratic approaches, that's what I want to target against a guy like Nick Taylor, who I like, who is very steady across the board. He's steady with the putting. He's steady with the around the green game. He's steady with the approach, and he's steady off the tee. It's one of those things where in a head-to-head matchup, I'm trying to play the volatility, and I'm trying to play against the volatility. So give me Nick Taylor as a short dog over Minwoo Lee. And listen, Nevada money line. I'm going right back to March Madness before we tee up the next picks. I got a college basketball play too. I really like Nevada against Dayton here. I think Nevada's playing way better basketball. They won 7 in a row prior to their loss against a very good Colorado State team, which we're about to see later on today. And Nevada just, listen, offensively, defensively, you look at their offensive and defensive efficiency metrics, and they're good across the board, kind of inside the top 40, top 45 in both of those sets of metrics. Dayton, on the other hand, their metrics do look pretty good offensively. They can score. They can score from three-point land. And, if any team gets hot, it doesn't matter who you are. If you get hot from three-point land, it could be lights out for the other team. But if you look how Dayton has played down the stretch, particularly defensively, not only have they lost against some poor quality teams, Duquesne being one of them. I mean, just as a whole, Duquesne, not exactly one of the best teams in the A10, but they've had some other bad losses too. And defensively, they're giving up way too many points. I think Nevada's going to be able to score against them. And as long as Dayton doesn't rain threes all game, which I don't think they will on a neutral court. Oh, by the way, we've got Nevada much better away from home than Dayton. So there's just so many things going, so many boxes to be checked in Nevada's favor over Dayton. So money line, I honestly think this line should be like 2.5. Maybe it's just there's an anti-Mountain West bias perhaps here. But I don't think Dayton is the team that Nevada is. So I'm happy to take their money line at -115. All right. So I gave you a golf pick, gave you a March Madness pick. Now Larry and Tom have more March Madness to give you, but we've got Proppy here. And we know that Proppy is the king of NBA props. And I don't think I'm overstating it, to be honest with you. Proppy, you've got the floor. What do you have in the NBA today?
Yes, yeah, I've got a prop that I absolutely love. I'm going to fade Jalen Green, one of the hottest players in the NBA right now, going under 24.5 points. This is a massive points prop for Jalen Green, who's averaging 19 points per game. I mentioned one of the hottest players in the league right now, but if we look at who he's been playing, he just torched Washington twice, San Antonio, Portland. These are all very bad defenses. He's playing a Chicago Bulls team that's a much better defense. They also play at a significantly slower pace than any of those opponents as well. They also possess one of the elite perimeter defenders in the NBA in Alex Caruso, who is questionable, but I did look closely into this. He's expected to play as more of a precautionary listing for him. So, yeah, this is actually one of my favorite props on the board today. It is actually my favorite overall prop on the board today, fading Jalen Green under 24.5 points. This is just a massive overreaction, in my opinion, against a much more difficult opponent in Chicago. I think he comes back down to earth. I'd play this down to 22.5 personally, and it is one of my 1.5 unit plays. So here we go. Let's fade Jalen Green tonight.
Wow, a 1.5er. We don't hate those when you put him out there. Jalen Green, such an athletic basketball player. I was watching a highlight yesterday of him against the Wizards. I guess it would have been 2 nights ago. He does things on the floor that just remind me of some of that, the Jordan-esque type stuff. Of course, there's plenty of players that do that, including Anthony Edwards most recently. But okay, let's move forward with some more March Madness. Sorry for going on to the Jalen Green rant. And also, I got to say, Big Cheesy, I love you. You say in Reno rooting for Nevada, pronounced like dad, not Dodd. In other words, Nevada, not Nevada. So I kind of know that, and I still say Nevada. It's just one of those things. We've had this discussion on this very show before on the early edge. I'm pushing back. I think it should be Nevada, and I'll try to say Nevada, but I think it should be Nevada. And also, I'm pushing it back against tapas restaurants. We had that discussion on social media yesterday as well. All right, we got to get to Tom and Larry's picks. Before we do that, let's hear one more message from our partners.
2 big boys getting ready to play. Big being the operative word here. And here they come.
One last reminder, if you're not already in our early edge bracket challenge, you have time to do it. We still have technically almost 2 hours. Again, the link is in the description here. If you want bragging rights against everybody in the early edge universe, and that includes everybody in the chat as well, but also the cappers on this show, only one way to do it, at least when it comes to March Madness, and it's the early edge bracket challenge. Again, the link for the bracket pool is in the description. First place takes home a year's subscription to SportsLine. See terms and conditions for offer details. Good stuff. All right, Tom, we finally got to get to some. We know you gave out the Drake earlier in the week. I think it was on the Monday show. You came on, you gave out the Drake. Any more college basketball picks for us?
Yeah, I'm not somebody who gives out a lot of big favorites. I think this season I've given out maybe 3 or 4 double-digit favorites, with the biggest being like -12 or -13 back in November. But I got to tell you, out of the thousands of games that I've broken down this year, Long Beach State might have the worst matchup on paper that I've seen. Everything they do spells doom for them against Arizona. They're going to play fast with Arizona, run up and down the court. They have a bad transition defense. They don't guard the 3. They don't rebound well. You got Arizona, who lost last year as a 2 seed, so I'm not worried about the motivation factor. You have them coming off a loss in the Pac-12 tournament, coming off losses this year. They're beating teams by an average of 16 points. Ask USC what it's like to play Arizona coming off a loss. They saw it in the Pac-12 tournament. I think we see a motivated Arizona team, and I just don't know. You're looking at a game where Arizona is going to get a bunch of layups, a bunch of open threes, and a bunch of offensive boards. I see this being like 101-68. I think they slaughter them. And again, I actually looked at this game because I was looking at the Arizona team total. And then when I got done, I said, I got to lay the 20, 19.5. I have to, because I just feel like this is going to be a massacre.
Yeah, this is interesting because I'm not necessarily big on Arizona this entire year, but this does look like a game where Arizona could absolutely shine and just absolutely obliterate Long Beach State University. Hey, Proppy, I got a question for you on Jalen Green. It's still 24.5 in some places. Moshe clarified that, but there's other places that have the Jalen Green prop you gave out at 23.5. Would you take it there?
I would absolutely take it there. I'd probably scale down to a 1-unit play there, though.
Okay, 1 unit play as opposed to 1.5. Good question. Glad we had a chance to answer it. All right, Maestro, we got to get to you. But before you give out your picks, and you've got 2 March Madness picks to give out, can I just say, because I'm looking over to my left, I see we have about 600 people watching, which is great. We really appreciate everybody tuning in, watching this show. But our like button to watch ratio right now is 6-1. It's not a good ratio. So this isn't just a message for today. It's really just for those of you that are in here every day, we really appreciate you. For those of you that aren't in here every day, we really appreciate you. If you can make it a habit when you get in here to hit the like button, I would really appreciate it. All right, Maestro, Larry Hartstein, March Madness. You've got 2 picks for today. We talked about, some dogs, maybe some money line dogs that we might actually want to sprinkle on, but let's talk about your official plays. You've got the floor.
Yeah, we've got a polarizing matchup to start the tournament. What a matchup. Mississippi State against Michigan State. And I know Mike McClure is on Michigan State from earlier in the week. I know there's a lot of sentiment for Tom Izzo to win that first game, and maybe he gets the calls at the end from the ref. But when I look at this matchup, I see, in my mind, the 2 most important players on Mississippi State. Josh Hubbard, as he goes, so goes the Bulldogs. This kid is averaging over 25 points in his last 8 games, the electric freshman guard. And then you have Tolu Smith, 6'11" in the middle. You have a Mississippi State team that holds their opponents under 30% from beyond the arc. They're also 9-0 in their last 9 on neutral sites. Played well in the tournament, obviously beat Tennessee before losing to Auburn. I like Mississippi State. I will take plus 1.5. But again, I think they're going to win this game. And then later on, NC State took a while to find their stride. We know they had talent. They lost a lot of close games. Then they put it together. They won 5 games in 5 days. And I wish this game was on Friday to give them a little more time to recharge. But still, these are kids. They are not going to all of a sudden say, we're done after what we did in the ACC. And they're facing a banged up Texas Tech team. You're talking about Darian Williams, the number 1 rebounder for Texas Tech, expecting to play. But it doesn't sound great with that ankle injury. I'm sure he'll be out there, but will he be 100%? Warren Washington, the big man, a true game time decision. This is a matchup where I think they could use him against DJ Burns. And just the way DJ Horn is playing down the stretch, 16 or more points in 3 of his last 4. This is going to be a game, I believe, that goes to the wire. I will take the 5 with the Wolfpack.
Yeah, that one is really interesting to me. And I do think it comes down to some degree to Warren Washington. I mean, if he plays, then I do think at least they've got somebody to cover Burns, and he is just such a contributor on both sides of the floor. But I think you're probably on the right side there. Maestro, go ahead.
9-0 against the number. I see we have a question about they just lost in the SEC tournament. Yes, but they've covered 9 straight at neutral sites.
And Jay Buser, the all caps. We would have seen it anyway. I don't know that we needed the all caps, but I appreciate the comment because we needed Larry to clarify that. So good job. And Larry, thank you for addressing the ATS part of what you were talking about. Snug the Cat says, Maestro is ignoring the Izzo factor, but I agree, a close game. That's a really interesting point because Maestro, I feel like the Izzo factor, and Tom, I wonder if you agree. I'll go to you first, Larry. It's kind of baked into the line. I feel like a lot of money comes in on Michigan State because of the Izzo factor, which is all the more reason to actually be on the other side. Do you agree with that, or am I overstating it?
I think it's baked into the line already. Tom, what about you?
Oh, yeah. No, I was going to say, yeah, I agree. And listen, we talk about all my great picks, but one of the picks I made before the season, I got $300 on Michigan State to win it all. The phenomenal odds of 16-1. So I was on this team all season watching them. They're hot garbage. Okay, if you watch a ton of basketball, I mean, this team has never come together, and this is just my own personal opinion. I think in 3 years, all these old coaches like Izzo are gone. The game has changed, and they're not adapting with it, and they're just, you can just see it. So is Tom Izzo a good coach? Is he a good tournament coach? Yeah. Is he a great coach right now? I don't think so. So I don't know who's going to win this game, but if people are expecting Michigan State to make a run in this tournament, take it from somebody who's got money on them. It's not happening.
Yeah, that is very interesting. A very objective take from somebody who should be subjective about Michigan State. And by the way, speaking of Michigan State, Scott Wise says James Madison. Well, they play tomorrow. That's going to be a very entertaining game. But James Madison, of course, beat Michigan State early in the season to really kind of kickstart their season. So I'm really excited to see how that. Listen, tomorrow, Big Pick Energy Friday is going to be amazing. So for all of you that are in here right now, we're approaching 700 people in here right now. Come back tomorrow because we got way more March Madness. But of course, we're going to be talking golf. We're going to be talking NBA. We're going to be talking soccer. It's going to be a mirror image of this show, really. We're going to add Chip Patterson to the mix, and it's going to be a ton of energy and a ton of picks. So I really encourage everybody to make sure you get in here tomorrow. This chat has been absolutely unbelievable. We lost a couple on the way, but we got all the March Madness guys still in here. Speaking of, let's look at the recap screen before we get everybody out of here. Buckets, Ukraine over 1.5 team total at plus 140. He gave out some. It pays to watch live bets as well. If you're joining us late, rewind and listen to what Buckets said to some live plays or some questions in the chat. I've got a round 2 head-to-head in the Valspar Championship. This one kicks off right after 1 o'clock. So you still have a few hours to get this one. We're obviously sweating a 3-ball that I put out yesterday. We've got Nick Taylor over the very hot, he can cook, Minwoo Lee, but I'm going with Nick Taylor's steady hand in this one. And then I've got Nevada money line late this afternoon at minus 115. Tom Casale, Arizona minus 19.5 at minus 105. And the Maestro, Mississippi State plus 1.5 at minus 115. I like Mississippi State here too. NC State plus 5, minus 105. And Proppy, Jalen Green under 24.5 points at minus 120. This is a unit and a half play for him. If it's 23.5, because there was a question in the chat, and if you're joining us late, if it's 23.5, he still likes it, but he wouldn't throw a unit and a half on it. He said maybe just scale it down to 1 unit. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, what a show. I got to thank Tom and Maestro for being here to answer all the questions. We're going to have so much more March Madness content coming up. A big thank you to Propstarz. A big thank you to Buckets. A big thank you to Mikey, the producer, filling in for Jake today on the 1s and 2s and 9s and 10s. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an electric show. Let's hope we don't rip up all of our brackets today. Let's continue this thing tomorrow on Big Pick Energy Friday. We'll see you here, same time, same place. On behalf of the Early Edge, I am the counselor, and we rest our case.